Welcome back to Cal Lutheran's student news publication, The Echo. This is our bi-weekly podcast, and this is Caroline Asen, the editor-in-chief, speaking. With us today is one of our reporters, Kennedy, who is a communication major with an emphasis in journalism and a junior. She recently wrote about the updates in the university's COVID-19 policies and protocols.
Hello, my name is Kennedy, and I'm so excited to be on today's podcast.
So Kennedy, can you talk about some of the already in place COVID-19 protocols?
Some things that we can talk about that are already in place as far as COVID-19 protocols are masks. Masks are strongly recommended, but they're not required. Quarantine and isolation are still in effect for anyone that falls ill or that tests positive for COVID-19. Vaccine requirements are still a big thing. Undergraduate students all across the campus have to be vaccinated, whereas graduate students or business for professional students do not have to. However, it is strongly recommended. Any COVID exposures or symptoms should be logged on the CLU Know site. Any changes in protocols will be updated on that site.
What have been some of the changes to these protocols?
So some of the things that have changed from these protocols, masks is probably the biggest one. Last semester or even last year, masks were required in all classrooms, but now they're strongly suggested. A lot of people still opt to wear masks, but it's no longer a requirement. Students can also now have visitors and guests in the dorms. Before, there had to be forms that were filled out. Now, students are free to have guests over in the dorms without filling out any forms. And another huge change to COVID protocols are the no more daily health checks. Last year, the health check on the MyCLU app was used to activate student ID cards for people to get into the buildings and the dorm rooms. Now those aren't required. Students now have the obligation to monitor their own symptoms. They no longer have to do the health check.
What are some of the available resources for students if they believe to have or have COVID-19?
So on the Cal Lutheran website, there are forms to fill out for reporting a positive test and reporting any exposure to COVID. In addition to all that, health services has been really good about setting students up with getting COVID tests if they have any symptoms or if they feel sick.
Where do these protocols stem from, and where should people go to keep updated with the university's protocols?
A lot of the decisions that CalLU makes is based off of public health recommendations, so we really pay attention to that, and we also see what other universities are doing. Ventura County Health Department is also another resource that we've been looking at. We have informed staff members and a whole group of faculty that monitor COVID and try to come up with protocols in order to address the severity of the pandemic right now. However, our president, Lori Varlata, gets final say for any COVID protocol.
In the new student compact, students who have someone to stay with within 150 miles of campus are expected to go there to quarantine. How strictly is this being enforced, and what are the alternatives if this is not possible?
Yes, it's being enforced just because there's limited housing spaces on campus for people that get sick. There's special quarantine rooms and stuff, but it is limited, so this new rule is being enforced. However, if at home a student is living with someone that is immune compromised, or if they're living with older people, CalLU may look into giving them housing on campus just because those are special circumstances. But overall, students who have someone to stay with within 150 miles during their quarantine time, that is being enforced.
Is there anything else students and listeners should know?
They should just keep track of their email. I know our emergency operations director, Ryan, has been really good about keeping students informed about new cases and any changes in protocol. So looking at your inbox is really important. Staying up to date on the Cal Lutheran Know website is also really important. Just coming together as a community during this rough time.
Another person with us is our news and managing editor, Taylor, who is also a communication major with a journalism emphasis and a senior. She recently wrote about the additions to the university's name change policy. What was the original name change policy and when was it put into effect?
So the original name change policy was actually that students could change their names on a variety of things like rosters for class and MyCLU and WebAdvisor and stuff like that to reflect a preferred name, but they weren't allowed to change it on student identification cards. So like the things that we swipe to get into like our dorm rooms and the things that we use to like pay for meals and stuff like that. So originally that was not allowed because it had been deemed an official document that needed to be used in a legal name. And so originally this had happened in fall of 2016, but the school has a policy, according to Maria Conkey, who's the registrar, people should be allowed to like revise the decisions that they've made as times change and stuff like that. So they went ahead and revisited it this past summer, and that is how we kind of got to like where we are today.
What additions have been made to this process and what will be changed?
So I know for sure that the thing that students are now able to change is the student ID cards, which they were previously not allowed to change. But in a list that I got from David Hilke, who's the director of campus safety, it said that the preferred first name will be used or displayed with the legal name in the MyCLU portal, Blackboard classes, web advisor, student planning, faculty advisee list, student self-service, and student housing. And then students will also now, I believe, have the option to change their email address. It's unclear whether or not the email address was something that was able to be changed before. I do believe, however, that it's new. Whether other things in the future will be able to be changed, like transcripts and things like that. I did talk to Maria Conkey about that, and because they are legal documents, it's a little bit different of a situation, if that makes sense, because you have to provide a certified document from the government saying that you got your name changed. So, what that means for the future, I'm not too sure. Basically, that's what I gathered.
Who were the key members for these changes and additions?
I think that it really depends on who you talk to, on who they say the key players are, because there's so many different moving parts and so many different people involved with them. But if, I mean, in my personal opinion, I think it was Dylan Gallagher, who's one of the co-presidents of Pride Club on campus, and he was really instrumental in getting this change sort of initiated. You know, he shared that this is something that he's kind of had to deal with in the past, and that he wanted to make it a lot easier for students. This is a process that shouldn't be difficult. It should be pretty straightforward, and it was difficult for so long. So now it's straightforward and it's being more inclusive for students who have different preferred names. As far as the different departments, there was Crystalia Buchanan, Leanne Nielsen, David Hilke was a part of it, Maria Conkey, just kind of some heads of different departments that kind of played their respective roles. But as far as bringing it to the attention, it was it was Dylan Gallagher, and he had a really good quote when I had spoken to him, that he said that a lot of teachers and faculty, if it doesn't affect them, they don't realize that it's a problem. And I think that that's true for a lot of things, not just like things regarding LGBTQ plus community.
How do students begin this process?
Like I said before, the process is a lot easier now. Basically, what you're going to do is there's a preferred name form that you can get at callutheran.edu/students. And then hashtag all students. There's a fill out a preferred/chosen first name form. And then you go ahead and you fill that out. Once that gets submitted, you have to wait for an email confirmation saying that your preferred name was approved. And then once you get that preferred name approved, you can go ahead and go change your ID.
Is there anything else students and listeners should know?
Something that was really touched on and highlighted by pretty much everybody that I talked to was that it's a respect thing. So kind of like you get respect where you give respect, and that it's okay to mess up. You know, we're all human. If you do mess up or accidentally call somebody by the wrong name or by the wrong pronoun, and they say, hey, actually, I prefer this name or I prefer this pronoun, you don't have to make it a whole big deal. You just kind of be like, oh, hey, I'm so sorry. okay, now I know. And then going forward, you just refer to them by their preferred pronouns and their preferred name. Even though it has the preferred name, preferred is in the title, it's not a preference, it's who they are. And I think that that's really important to highlight on, is that it for a lot of people it goes beyond just being, oh, I preferred to be called this. Like, that is part of their identity.